Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney seems to have learned his lesson when it comes to dealing with Donald Trump.
The Prime Minister learned his lesson from the last time he had this kind of interaction with Donald Trump, where it went completely off the rails.
And rightfully so, because as we all know, Trump is no stranger to humiliating himself on the world stage. Whether dozing Don needs to be put down for nap time in Saudi Arabia.
Read a lot of the material now out of Saudi Arabia, and Mohammed bin Salman is saying we need a resolution on a Palestinian state. And I don't necessarily recall several years ago, or do you think the way he has expressed himself,
or the Pope's funeral, or here domestically at his own trial, or his own $50 million birthday parade because it was such a snooze fest. But today's display of utter humiliation at the G7 summit might be the best yet for a number of reasons. Because while dozing Don might think nobody puts baby in a corner, the world, and specifically the host of the summit, the Canadian Prime Minister, seems to think otherwise.
Another awkward moment, the fact that the Canadian Prime Minister wanted to end the Q&A with reporters. It was beginning to feel uncomfortable, clearly, for him.
And quite frankly, folks, he might have saved Trump's ass from further humiliation by cutting off his rambling press conference. Now, the G7 summit is being hosted by Canada in the Rockies and Alberta, and it's a huge moment for Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who already has a history of humiliating Trump here at home.
They get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
And it's no wonder, as we'll see, the Canadian Prime Minister had to politely step in once again to shut up and shut down Donald Trump, because before the disaster presser even started to go off the rails, Trump was already making a complete ass of himself.
You go over there, I'll put you in the middle. Okay, good. Yeah. Not bad. Really good. Put the jet up there. We got the program the other day. We said 100% chance of rain. I thought it was supposed to be good, but they'll pay us 50 years over here. Okay, thank you. You good? Yeah. Okay. All right. So,
if you couldn't hear it there, Trump said we had the parade the other day. They said there was a 100% chance of rain, but it didn't rain. And I agree with Republicans against Trump. He is such a f***ing embarrassment. Case in point, because then Trump finally got the mic and began to rehash his usual talking points, claiming former President Joe Biden allowed, quote, murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails into the United States, and the Canadian leader stepped in to shut him up.
The jails out into the U.S., most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to exercise my role, if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president and his team, and then we actually have to start the meeting to address some of these big issues. So, alors merci beaucoup vos questions et puis thank you. That's it. That's it. Thank you very much. Out. Cool guys. Out. Thank you.
Look like he might say something else there, President Trump. They're meeting with...
Another awkward moment, the fact that the Canadian Prime Minister wanted to end the Q&A with reporters. It was beginning to feel uncomfortable, clearly, for him.
It certainly was. You saw them standing right there in sort of an awkward fashion. Kristen Holmes, who is live in Calgary, as the president talked about a range of issues, particularly the escalation between Iran and Israel, saying that Iran, in his view, is not winning this war. Kristen.
Yeah, that's right. And I think this is the biggest news out of what we just heard was all of what Donald Trump said about Iran, the war.
They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
He also said that his administration has heard from Iranian intermediaries that say they want to de-escalate. That is something that we had been hearing, that they want to come to the table. He said that they should have done this already. They should make a deal. He said that they aren't winning the war. He obviously said again that he supports Israel. Now, he wouldn't answer a question for what it would take for the United States to ramp up their involvement. He has been incredibly wary about getting involved in this. We know that the United States is involved in deflecting and protecting Israel from missiles right now. But beyond that, what would it take to get the United States involved? He would not answer that question. And I do just want to point out one thing that we all just took away from that was that the Prime Minister learned his lesson from the last time he had this kind of interaction with Donald Trump, where it went completely off the rails. The longer that Donald Trump took questions, the more aggressive it got, the more tense that Carney got in that meeting in the Oval Office. Here, he set the boundaries, he set the timeline, and you saw the president there. He would have continued to take questions. Carney stepping in to say, we're moving forward now, we need to finish our conversations, the behind the scenes. Remember, one of the things we've seen with Donald Trump in these meetings with world leaders is his ability to really put this front and center. Usually and historically, with a White House meeting with any other head of state, you have something like this, where you have these pleasantries exchanged, a couple questions, and then it's over. Donald Trump has been opening up these meetings to the public with the cameras, and you can tell Carney here wanted to shut that off. And just one thing I just have to quickly note, I mean, he used so much of his time during this Q&A talking about Russia and how Russia should be part of a G8, saying Putin wasn't over that, saying that if he had been in the G8, he would have never brought the war. I mean, he spent an enormous amount of time focused on why Russia should still be part of the G8. Obviously, he's not G7 now, but that was just kind of interesting given the fact that the two of them were sitting there talking about all these other things, trade, the war, Iran, all of that.
Yeah, and it was notable, too, because he said that the war wouldn't be going on with Russia and Ukraine had they been kicked out, in his view. But, of course, the reason Russia was kicked out of the then G8, now G7, was because of its invasion of Crimea. Kristen Holmes, thank you very much.
Utterly humiliating. Not only did Donald Trump go off the rails about the protests here at home and the Iran-Israel situation, but also once again brought up Russia, which to me is completely unsurprising. And just shows how much dementia Don has completely lost it. There's no way that orange skin tag even knows the reason they were kicked out of the summit to begin with. And look, folks, amid all the chaos going on, I think at least we can take some solace here that Donald Trump and MAGA are humiliating themselves around the world. And that wholly thwarts his attempts to authoritarianly grab America by the pussy. Thanks for watching. You can join our Really American Resistance by liking, subscribing, dropping a comment with your thoughts, or just a blue heart down below. For Really American, I am Kenny Hesse, and I will see you guys in the next one.